What is up, YouTube? Johnny B here again today, and we're gonna be bringing you a new video, a video that you guys have been requesting for the longest time. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you guys will see me, doing all kinds of body work, painting cars and stuff like that, showing you guys basically the process of how a car was when I first got it, and then me replacing parts, painting everything, putting it all back together, and then finally showing you guys the finished product. So I've had a couple of you guys ask me, how do I start painting, Johnny? Like, I want to learn how to paint. A lot of us are skeptical at the beginning. Even me, when I first started painting, that was probably like one of the things that I didn't do with cars. Like, when we brought in cars to the dealership, I tend to do everything I can to them, except paint was always something that was a little bit scary for me, because I feel like it's something that has to be done really well the first time, or else you have to redo it all over again, and it's just like the biggest pain. You can't just take your time. Everything is time-based. But after I started practicing, with some of the junkier cars that we had, like the $3,000 cars, start practicing painting them, I got a little bit more comfortable, and then I started painting our newer cars. So I kind of know I'm not a professional by any means. This is just something that I learned myself, just from practice, trial and error. I didn't go to school for this, so don't quote me on everything that I know. But it works for me, and the cars come out looking pretty gorgeous. This is what we're gonna be painting. I think it's called the Vortex Generator. A customer brought it to me. He wants me to paint it for him. It's gonna be going on a BRZ. And the color is gonna be World Rally Blue, so it's a very beautiful color. So this is a highly requested question of, I wanna paint my accessories, Johnny. Like, what do I need to do to paint the plastic so it doesn't peel off? Because I've had a lot of experience with taking their front lip to get painted by someone, and then it turns out that it starts flaking and peeling off. So I'm gonna try to show you guys the best I can to how I make sure that doesn't happen when I paint. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so I'm gonna start off by giving you basically a basic rundown of what you're gonna need to paint, whether it be your lip, your front bumper, or anything that you want to just customize on your car for that matter. But you want it to have that professional look, that OEM quality. You don't want it to be doing like a rattle can setup just to make it look nice, because it'll never look as nice as an actual spray paint or a spray gun. So the first thing you're gonna need is to figure out your paint code. So you can either look it up online, or your car should have a paint code somewhere, and if you don't, you're gonna have to look it up on forums and stuff like that. So then you're gonna need to go to your local automotive paint store. In my case, I go to a place called Adco Paint, which is a big company. They have a lot of stores around here in Arizona. So in case you guys are here in AZ, that's the place to go. If you're in somewhere else, just look around to see which one's the best one for you. The second thing you're gonna need is obviously a clear coat. So as you guys see there, I have clear coat that's called Perfect Coat. It's a new clear coat that just came out. They're trying to get their name out there, so their prices are significantly cheaper. This one cost me 50 bucks with the clear coat and the activator or hardener. So it's the little bottle next to it on the left side. So you need those two to be able to make the clear coat. And then right next to it, where it says TCI products, that is our reducer. So that's the paint reducer. That I use that to obviously reduce the paint, and then also to clean up the gun whenever I'm finished, I'll go ahead and clean it up. When you're painting plastic products, so a front lip, a front bumper, rear bumper, any plastic product, you are gonna need an adhesion promoter. So that just requires a light coat. You're gonna need an adhesion promoter to make sure that in case that plastic flexes, the paint is really well bonded to that plastic, and it's not just gonna peel off, crack, or flake or stuff like that. You want it to stay on there, so that's what that's used for, mainly for plastics. Like a little conical filter, that's what you're gonna use anytime you're gonna fill up your paint gun. You're gonna put the paint or the clear coat through that filter before putting it into the paint gun. Another thing that's very necessary, this is mainly for you, it's very good to have, is your safety, is that mask. That mask is gonna filtrate the air for you, so you're not breathing in all these chemicals, because clear coat, paint, reducer, all that stuff, there's all kinds of chemicals that are not good for your lungs, obviously. So you're gonna need to get your mask. Another thing that you're gonna need is sandpaper. So there's a lot of different options for sandpaper depending on what you're needing to do. Normally, if I'm doing body work and I'm fixing dents and stuff like that, I'll use like 320 grit just to make sure that whatever I put on there grabs on pretty good. But when you're gonna paint, the sandpaper that you want to use is 600. So you can be using anything lower, but then you want to bump it up to 600 before you paint, because you don't want to be seeing scratch marks through your paint. It's gonna make it, you know, whatever you paint look really ugly. So 600 is the lowest that you want to go. That gray scuff pad right there, that's mainly what I use for plastics. You can use 600 grit sandpaper also, but that's a special tool that I found that works really well. It's made specifically for it. It's just called the scuff pad. One of the next things that you're gonna need is like little wood sticks. You can see those in the box. That's what you're gonna be using to mix the paint inside of the containers. Those containers are very necessary because your paint and your clear coat, they all need specific measurements. If you do not get the measurement right, let's say for instance you put clear coat and you don't put enough hardener, your clear coat is never gonna dry, or it's gonna take it very long to dry, and by that time you're gonna have all kinds of dirt, bugs and stuff in your clear coat. So we don't want that. These are the main things you need. Also, another thing you're gonna be needing is a compressor. So for the paint gun, you need at least a 30-gallon compressor for it to be working continuously. I have like a 60-gallon compressor, so that works perfectly fine for me. Let's get on to the actual painting process now. Step one, you wanna go ahead and sand it down with 600 grit or using a gray scuff pad. So we're gonna go ahead and scrape it everywhere we can. We don't want any smooth surfaces. Make sure to get all the edges also. We don't wanna miss any spot because we want the paint to stick to it really well. Step two, now that we have it all sanded down, scuffed up, you want to take all of the remaining material or take off any dirtiness. I'm just using a microfiber towel with water just to wipe it all down and get any like little extra debris off from the sanding that we got. Just so we can go ahead and leave it nice and clean so we can get ready for the adhesion promoter. Step three. After you go ahead and let it dry off completely, we're gonna go ahead and put on some adhesion promoter. This one specifically comes with a little bit of primer and surfacer, so it's kind of like a mixture of both, but you can just get a regular basic adhesion promoter. Bulldog is another well-recognized brand. What you do with this is you just apply a very light coat over everything, kind of like you're just misting it. So the cool thing about this specific adhesion promoter is that it comes with primer already in it. So that way when you're spraying it down, you can actually see where you sprayed. If you get just a basic adhesion promoter, it's clear, so you just see like kind of like shiny spots in certain areas. So this just helps me give it a nice, more even coat. Also, you do not need to sand this step. As long as it's just like a light coat, it'll flatten out and it'll still look good underneath the paint. But you can sand it if desired. Sanding optional, not required. Bonds to plastic bumpers. It also has a lot of different other uses, but mainly it is for that. Step four. So now what you want to go ahead and do, you want to mix your paint. So this is the paint that we went with. It's a DBC with PPG. So it's basically a PPG paint. It's just their DBC model, which is their highest one. This is literally just 8 ounces, so half of this, or half a pint, is $66 in the World Rally Blue. So it's very expensive if you want to get some of the higher quality paint, which is going to give you the best color matching. There's also a medium paint that's obviously a lot cheaper. It'll be like 30 bucks for about this amount. But when you're dealing with a metallic, especially like the World Rally Blue that's really beautiful, it gets a little pricey. For your paint mixture, you're gonna need a measuring cup. This measuring cup is dirty on the outside, but it's really clean on the inside, I can assure you. The mixture of this high quality paint with reducer is a 50-50. So now that we put in our 3 ounces of paint, I'm gonna go ahead and put another 3 ounces of reducer. So this is the medium one. There is a fast or a slow reducer depending on the temperature of your area. So right now it's a bit cold, so I'm using the medium one. If it's even colder, you can use a fast one, or if it's warmer outside, you can go ahead and use the slower one. Now we are at 6 ounces total, so 3 ounces of the reducer and then 3 ounces of the paint. That's a perfect 50-50 mixture. Then you're gonna want to go ahead and get your paint mixer and just mix it up. All right, so step 5, you want to go ahead and put some reducer in your paint gun, because we're going to go ahead and adjust it or tune it, I guess you can say. So let's go ahead and cover this up. All right, so the way you want to adjust your gun, it has 3 different adjusters. It has this top one right here is to adjust your trigger, so it'll adjust how much it opens to let out, you know, whatever liquid, paint, whatever liquid you have in there. This bottom one down here is to adjust pressure, so you don't need that much pressure. I'm sure there's a specific amount, but I like to tune it, you know, by feel and the way it sprays. And then you have another one right here, which this also adjusts the pressure, so it gives you a different angle. So if I give it too much air, it'll literally split the stream and do 2 big marks like that. You see how it's sprayed? Just 2 big lines. You don't want that. You want it to be a nice, even spray. That way when you're putting on the paint, it's gonna be nice and even. So now if I put in a little bit less, or basically just to kind of cut off the air from that specific section, it's gonna do 1 big burst. Actually, that one was pretty good. 1 big burst, like that. So as you can see, it'll just leave like a big spot. So you wanna go ahead and adjust it to where it's perfect for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up a little bit more. Right there. You see how it's leaving a nice, even area? That's what you want. You don't want it to be splitting in 2, or you don't want it to just be 1 straight shot. You want it to be a nice fan opening like that. That way when you're spraying, it'll go on nicely. So that's a very important step to adjust your gun, to make sure it's spraying properly, because obviously after storage, these can be moved around or something. So you want to go ahead and test that before you even spray, to make sure it's spraying properly. Step 6 is pour in the paint through a filter into your gun. Go ahead and pour it all in. I'll show you guys right there what that looks like. All right, so now that we poured in the paint, you want to make sure you get your mask. You want to go ahead and put that on. And then when you're painting, you want to give it nice, even strokes all around. So you start on one end, go, stroke all the way, let go, and then just come back and forth. You want them to be nice, smooth, even strokes. And then obviously you go by step, so the fan is only that big or whatever size you decide you want to go with. And then you just overlap them halfway through. That way you make sure that the paint is, you know, adequately getting put onto the piece that you're painting. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure you put on your mask. So now that we gave it the first coat, obviously you saw I made sure that I got all of the edges, because when you're spraying a coat over the top, sometimes the edges won't get paint on them. So you want to make sure that you give it some angle, paint on that section, and on all 4 corners, especially on these vortex generators. These need to be painted, you know, separately. So that's why when I did a pass over the top this way, I changed it to do a pass this way. So that way when I went on this angle, I was able to get this side of that. And then when I did the other side, I was able to get the other side. So just make sure that, you know, you get a nice even coat everywhere. Between coats, you want to wait a couple minutes, you know, basically just let them dry a little bit. You don't want it to be running on you, because the paint will run. So You can give it up to like 2-3 coats, you know, whatever is best for you. That way you know that the paint is covering the base color or the material. So let's go ahead and continue giving it a couple more coats. All right, so the color's looking really good. We got it, you know, everything is covered properly. An issue when you're not painting inside a paint booth like I am right now, you know, out in the open, is that you're gonna be getting some sort of debris on the paint. Sometimes it's lint, sometimes it's hair, sometimes it's dirt, sometimes it's even bugs, because, you know, they're everywhere outside. So a thing that I normally do is, like, say I put a coat and then something lands in it, I let it dry a little bit first, and then with the paint gun, if you hold down the trigger halfway before it starts releasing paint, it just releases air. So right there, I'm just releasing air. So what I do is I just go ahead and press it to where there's air. I kind of just rub it off with my finger because my hands are still clean, and it'll remove that piece of debris with the air pressure. So I'll loosen it with my finger and remove it. You know, that's not probably the best way to do it, being that we wouldn't have that issue if we had a paint booth. Pull it right out. I've had this issue before, obviously, so you don't want to do all that work. It came out so nice and then a bug just lands on it and just automatically ruins it, right? So that's a good way to get that bug out without damaging it any further than the bug already did. Step 7, you want to go ahead and clean out your gun. Obviously, you're going to have some leftover paint in here. So what I like to do is I put the leftover paint back into the container, and then whatever doesn't clean out, I use some of the reducer. I put it in the gun. I cap it off again, kind of like rinse it around. And then I just press the trigger and let the paint come out of the gun. As you can see, it's getting a little bit clearer and clearer as we go. That gets all of the paint out, and I like to just pour it back into the same container that I mixed in, because this reducer will help me clean that container later on. So if it's just sitting in there, it will help me clean it because it'll reduce the paint. That's what it's for, right? And at the same time, it's helping me clean the gun. Here we go. Get the rest of it out. And the gun is now clean. Step 8. So now I have this clear container that I obviously haven't gotten dirty with any paint. This is what I use for my clear coat. So what you're gonna need to do is get your actual clear coat, and you are gonna throw it in here. So this cup has a lot of measurements. All you really need for clear coat is a 4:1 ratio. So in this case, to make it easier for you guys, and since I'm not using a lot of it, I'm gonna pour in 4 ounces, and we're gonna pour in 1 ounce. So that's gonna be our 4:1 ratio. If you do not get this mixture right, or basically if you don't add enough activator or hardener, the clear coat will not dry, as I warned you guys earlier. Very essential step. And then we just go ahead and mix it. And then after you're done mixing it, you want to go ahead and throw it in the gun. All right, so here we are with step 9. We're gonna go ahead and pour in the mixed clear coat. Now this is one of the harder steps because you don't know how much clear coat you're actually going to need. I just typically end up making about the same or a little bit more clear coat than paint. And if you run out, you can always make more. So now let's go ahead and spray the part. All right, so now that we're gonna go ahead and clear coat this piece, there are a couple things that you wanna know first off. The first coat is just gonna be a light mist. So we're literally just gonna be about, I wanna say about a foot away, 12 inches, maybe a little bit more than that, and just a fast pass over all of it. That way it all just gets misted and it's gonna get like a frosty look. So that's gonna show you that, you know, that's the first step done. Then after that, you let it dry a little bit, probably a couple like minutes, no more than 5 minutes. And then you go on to the second coat of clear coat, which is gonna be a little bit of a wet coat. So that one you wanna be same distance, but as you're pressing the trigger all the way down, and you are going at a little bit slower rate than the first time, and it's gonna be wetting the part And that's not gonna be necessarily the last one, because it's just gonna be showing a little bit of the mist through that wet spot that you're doing. And then after that, you let it dry a little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and do the third coat, which is gonna be the full-on heavy coat, the last one. So that one, the way you wanna do it is you go a little bit slower, but same thing again, 12 inches away. You go slow, and you'll notice that you don't wanna stay in one spot too long, because then your clear coat is gonna start to run. I guess this is one of the things that you need practice for. It's not really a given speed that you guys are just gonna know. Maybe watching me on video will help you guys a little bit, but you know, just practice on something first. That way you can get the hang of it, and then do the painting of your parts, because you don't want to mess them up. 3 coats: mist, semi-wet, and fully wet. So let's go ahead and get started. Step 10, you want to make sure you clean your gun, because clear coat will clog the gun. So let's go ahead and get all the clear coat that we had left in there. Put some more reducer. Little drops of clear coming out. There we go. Now a stream started coming out. So you want to make sure that you clean the gun after the clear coat. You know, don't forget to clean it, because it will clog your gun, and you're going to have a really bad time trying to clean it and get it to unclog again. So it's always best to clean your gun exactly after you are done. You want to make sure you clean this. Typically I do it at least twice. Now we have some fresh reducer in there again to clean out the gun. Get as much clear coat as we can out of there. Get whatever was in there out. And I just leave it like that, and that's how I store it, with reducer in it. That way, if there is some left over, it doesn't let it dry up. It just keeps eating through it, and your gun doesn't get clogged. So very important step. Now let's see the finished product. All right, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Hope the steps were, as clear as can be, and helping you understand. Obviously, the hardest part to explain, or for you guys to be able to understand without trying it yourself, is the clear coat. So if you guys saw in the video on the clear coat on the third step, I actually went over it, nice and even. But since that thing has like different angles, little fins, different sides, that's one of the hardest parts to get, because if you just do like a coat over the top, it's gonna leave the edges where the clear coat didn't land. It's gonna leave them like matte color, and it's not gonna look good. So what I had to do is, one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with an odd shaped part like that is first I clear coat the rough edges or the edges that I know that the clear coat's not gonna reach. So for example, like the sides of it, went ahead and clear coated those first. And then also the fins, you can go ahead and clear coat those and then give it a nice coat over the top. It's just difficult. You always want to make sure that you're doing it when there's enough sunlight. Obviously there's not a lot of sunlight right now, but with the lights and stuff, it kind of helps out. Look at it in every single angle, and if there's a spot where it's not, like the clear coat isn't nice and glossy, if you had just barely laid the clear coat, you can go ahead and give it like an extra little spray in that section. As long as the clear coat was like recently sprayed and it's still like wet, it'll bond together, if that makes any sense. Because if you spray clear coat and then you decide to spray a little bit of clear coat later after it has dried, then that's going to be causing an issue, because the overspray from the second coat that you're doing after the main clear coat already dried is going to get on top of the clear coat and make it, you know, not so shiny. It's going to make it like a matte color. So it's a pretty difficult process when it comes to the clear coat, but once you practice it enough, you can get it down right. On a smooth part, like not that one, for example, on a hood, if the clear coat doesn't come out as shiny as you wanted, or it came out with too much orange peel, then there's a wet sanding process that you can do and the polishing method to get the clear coat to look, you know, like a factory spec. So I did a car recently. The orange peel kind of protruded a little bit too much, like you could see it a lot. The car wasn't as shiny. I was perfectly fine with that, because sometimes you don't want to add too much clear coat and then you get runs, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again, because you can't really take out runs. Even with sandpaper, they're always going to be there. So what I did is I sanded it down with 1500, sanded it down with 2000. You can keep sanding it down as, you know, as high as you want, and then you do a polishing, but it's a whole different step, I guess you can say. But this is just the main painting portion. So that way you guys know how to paint your pieces. You know, whatever you want to paint, you give it a nice professional paint coat on it, which is going to be, you know, just as good as your actual body color, and it's going to match really good. If you get the expensive paint like I did, if you're just going to paint the whole car, then you can just get whatever paint you want, because it's all going to match the same. If you do decide you want to paint pieces later on, I always recommend keeping a little bit of extra of that same paint you use. That way, you know, if you need to paint something else, you have that paint and it's going to be the same exact color. So on that note, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned a lot, and you guys can have a great day.